We back.
We back. Thank you, Shani. I'm gonna share the live and
Thanks, Shani. I just heard share the live. I'm guessing into Discord. I'm guessing that's.
Yeah, she said
oh,
I'm gonna share the live.
into the messenger chat.
Oh, gotcha.
So we can get Jacob and Kanoa. I haven't heard from Kanoa in a long time.
Kanoa joined the live a while ago. I saw it.
I saw him join, but then he left, and I'm like, I want to check in,
Hmm.
and I haven't really had a chance to really talk to him.
Can I demand that all niggers be hung immediately? Dissected.
We should lynch all the time.
Wow.
Repent and believe the gospel,
Wow, that
everybody.
was crazy. What was that?
Welcome to TikTok. But what's crazy is like that sounded like a full-grown man.
Uh-huh. Don't have anything better to do at this time.
Yeah.
We need to get the lights up as fast as we possibly can, people. I just finished making sandwich bread and it looks so good. It
Ooh,
smells really good too.
I should make some bread today.
We need smell-o-vision.
Yeah, for real.
I think I'm gonna put my earbuds in because my boys are being extra loud today. I don't know what the deal is. I think because it's Friday.
Yeah, mine too. I was about to say it's Friday and my kids doubled up on school yesterday so they could have today off. And I was like, whatever. Like, I still feel like you should be doing school. But it was also, I told you this in the Discord, but my middle kid's 10th birthday. So, I was like, I won't be a Debbie Downer on his birthday.
Yeah, I always give my kids their birthdays off.
Yeah. Which we normally have Thursdays off anyway because we do co-op.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's what we consider their school for the day.
yeah,
Um, and that he was like, well, we always have Thursdays off anyway. Can I have tomorrow off? And I was like, just double up on school and fine. That'll be
yeah.
okay.
Dang. Also, Hemi, that is impressive. 10-day fast.
What is it?
He said, I'm on a 10-day fast. Can we not talk about food?
Oh, well, I'm sugar fasting, Hemi, so if that helps you feel any better, like I haven't had anything sweet since um not last Monday, but the Monday before, so it'll be 2 weeks this upcoming Monday.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
really need to do that.
Yeah, sugar is one of those things that like you don't it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I've
How
been detoxing like really bad. Like
I bet. I bet.
I felt awful and so tired and like sluggish. And then I'll get a craving and I'm like, Lord, please just take it away. I don't I don't need any more gummy bears
or, or M&Ms.
or M&Ms. Yeah,
All right, look at me
screaming.
go. I'm still talking about food and now I'm talking about sugary food.
Hemi, it's probably best to just like leave for a few minutes because I don't think we're done yet.
He had a dream about pancakes. Oh no.
Oh,
That's terrible. That's like a nightmare when you're fasting.
yeah.
So we just had one troll
One troll. This is
for
lame.
the restart.
I'm willing.
Oh,
I am willing to go over to mine if you want to and try it over there, but I need co-hosts. I can't be by myself. Like I'll lose it.
Yours get like it's kind of crazy that like they get a lot of traction.
I don't understand why. Like even like cuz you go live consistently, Adrian goes live consistently, and y'all are like so suppressed. And then I barely ever go live, and I get, I'm getting up in the 40 and 50 numbers. I know that's not a huge amount of people, but it's still something, like it gives us something to work with. I don't understand how TikTok works. It's weird.
I don't
But up to
either.
you. It's up to you.
I'm like, it's so weird. I don't know. I don't know. It's crazy how like people can have like the most like I think people just they that's like the apathy part of it where like they don't want to actually like think about important things and like
Mhm.
the truth. And so you'll see lives where they have like totally useless topics that like are literally just to fight, really. Like it's not
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
actually
I've
like
been seeing a lot of that.
mm-hmm.
find the truth or anything like that. But then there's like 80 people in there. It's like, what is
That
this?
that
Yeah.
conversation y'all were having when I came on a while ago was really good. I was
I
like,
know. I know.
I don't know how the beginning of that was, but the end was really good. The fact that she was like, she started crying,
Yeah,
that
Yeah.
was
I
crazy.
agree. Conversations don't normally go like that. They're normally
No,
um,
not the
having
ones
to
I've
mute
seen.
and talking over each other, and there's just a lot of overwhelm in a lot of the conversations.
Oh, that's a good one.
Maybe this one will get some people.
Yeah, this
Maybe.
is a good one.
You know, I was thinking about IVF the other day, and I almost feel like it's because it's one of the topics, like, because I'm cutting back on how frequently I go live, but it's one that I still really want to talk about. But it's almost like with IVF, like, people are so unaccustomed to even like thinking about it being wrong, like, at all.
Hmm.
Like, it kind of makes the abortion part, like, which I know the abortion ties into the IVF, but people kind of think about like abortion like a little bit more than IVF. Like I feel like IVF so untalked about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
kind of
It's
crazy.
because it's quote unquote bringing life instead of taking life. So um, they don't. I mean, people don't think twice about that. They're just like, well, abortion. They can see why somebody would like be like, oh, okay, yeah, you're taking the life of something. You're not giving life. But in the process of IVF, you're um you're creating life, but they're not realizing what it's taking to create that life.
Can I have
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
can I ask a question as a person who's jumping in here with limited knowledge on this?
well, how old
Uh,
are you, really quick?
I'm
yes. Yeah.
24, and what is IVF?
In
In
vitro
vitro.
fertilization.
Is
Hmm.
that where the doctor like takes the whatever and like uses a needle or something? Or is there more
Yes.
too?
Yeah. Yeah. They
There's a
create.
lot to it.
There's a lot
So,
Yeah.
to it. Hmm?
hmm.
Yep. But they make the embryo like in a petri dish.
Yeah, they create babies in lab,
Yep.
and then a lot of babies die because they're like graded and said they're not worthy of life. So they just get thrown in the trash or put into cryogenic prison.
or
Those
used for
IVF
medical
babies that are like
research.
being carried to term, this is what's happening to them?
Not the ones that are being carried to term. Now they are graded. All the embryos are graded. They're given a certain grade, and if they don't make like it's like a very complicated process that they do,
Mm-hmm.
that they grade off of. And if they don't make the top two grades, many times they are discarded or they are used for medical research.
Right.
But the ones that are carried to term, most likely they did make the grade. And so they're not, this isn't happening to them.
Right.
And, you know, they're still valuable, even though they were created in a way that harms other human beings. There's still value in those that were born via IVF.
Well,
That's not our issue with IVF. The issue is what's happening to all the millions and millions of other ones.
right. What's happening to the millions of other people? Like,
Well,
fill me in. I don't know anything about this. This
o-
sounds like it's a big
okay,
thing.
it is. Okay, so what happens is they put the sperm and the egg together in a petri dish, or
Mhm.
and then they watch that. They fertilize the egg. It becomes an embryo at that point with a unique set of DNA that make you know that at that point we believe that life begins at fertilization. So they're
Right, at the
creating
spark
a
of the
new
life.
life at that point. Now let me back up a minute. So they're not just taking one egg and one sperm at a time. They're typically taking like a, a bunch of eggs, like 20 or 30, and they watch them, and the ones that are mature, then they'll use those, and they will typically fertilize um, anywhere from like 8 to 15 at a time,
Right.
and then so you're getting like possibly up to 15 embryos at one time.
Which is,
Now
that's a
the numbers
lot.
are, yeah, it is. And for each cycle, and it on average takes 4 cycles of IVF to produce one live birth from IVF. So
And
that's
that's
like
over
almost
120 days.
100. Yeah,
Right.
there's a whole bunch of embryos being created in the process, and
I heard
then
that the extraction methods for that is it's so excruciatingly painful that people have like lifelong repercussions from it. Not so much
yeah,
repercussions, but it hurts for life.
I haven't heard a whole lot about that, but it is pretty invasive.
Yeah.
So yeah, and just the fact that they're having to pump their body with hormones um, to all along the way throughout the process, that alone is also pretty excruciating because they're getting injections every day, and oftentimes they're having to either give it to themselves or their spouse is giving it to them. Um, there's a lot there, and we don't know the full repercussions of what happens when we pump our body full of hormones that aren't. I mean,
I
a
personally think
woman.
the more extra things you take, the more medicine you take, the worse off you can actually make yourself because you're just getting off
Oh,
your natural chemistry.
yeah, absolutely. You're going outside the way God created your body, what God created your body to do.
I don't trust all the doctors.
Yeah, and and then on top of that, you have to think about. Um, the other kinds of things. Well, let me finish explaining the whole process to you so you can understand why we're saying that embryos are being murdered, because that's what we believe, that they are human life from fertilization, and that they are being murdered in the
Because
process.
their process takes about like 30 of it, so if one of them survives, like just in one instance, but it would be a
Yeah,
hundred, so it'd be like one out of 100 lives was really worth it.
yeah. The average is like
I understand
um,
better now.
one live birth for 30 embryos is what the overall average is. That
That is so
everybody
sad.
has their own numbers, but
All the
if you
tiny
take the
lives that were
average,
lost.
yeah,
That's insane.
right. But once they are fertilized and they become embryos, then they go through the developmental stages just like an embryo in a woman's womb, and they watch them, and then they grade them like on day 5 of the embryonic stage,
Mm.
and they base the grade off of cellular division, and just there's a whole bunch of criteria that they have to meet to make those top 2 grades. The ones that don't make the grade, they are um, either immediately discarded, or they are sent and for medical research. Sometimes they are used, but not a whole lot, because that makes their numbers go down, and they don't want it. The numbers are already low enough that they would not be making money if they continue to use low grade embryos.
But
Now
man,
there have been some low grade embryos that have rallied, and like they start dividing well, and they it turns out well for them, but it's not as likely
yeah,
in the IVF world view. It's so they tend to stay away from those. They also do um, testing on them, on the embryos, to test for genetic abnormalities like Down syndrome and um, trisomy 18. There's like a whole slew of things that they test for, and if they test positive for something, then they will discard that or send it to medical research. Which the ones that go to medical research, they eventually end up dying anyway because they're being tested on.
I think that
And
so. Just a little while ago, I mentioned that like the babies that were in the petri dish, I guess even though they would not be considered to be babies yet, but they're still fertilized eggs, so there's still like
mhm,
that's a life right there if that goes to term. I don't understand where the misconception is. It's not that we don't want people to have babies. We don't want 30 lives to die in a fridge for one, you know?
right, right,
Right,
and
exactly. Because that's, I mean, that's child sacrifice, to
Yeah.
mhm,
sacrifice children to have one.
Of
Yeah,
course you're gonna
mhm,
have
not
all
good.
these eggs your whole life, but like, oh my gosh, you know?
yeah, and
Yep.
the we want to people the culture wants to dehumanize these children. You know, I mean, none of us, when we found out we were pregnant, did we say, "Oh, I'm with embryo" or "I'm with fetus." We said we were with child.
Mm.
It's a child, no matter what stage in the womb they're in. Um, so
Yeah, from the
yeah,
point
they
of fertilization, that's a life. I am with
right,
you.
good, because that's what God says, and that's why we believe that, is because God says it, and He's the one that creates life, and we're
Norse,
trying
are you
to
a, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
No,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna ask if he was a Christian.
Oh,
I'm actually Catholic, but like, I think we believe just about the same thing, dude. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think I want to say that Catholics are pretty strongly opposed to IVF, but I haven't looked into like how they reached that
That's
conclusion.
just
But
some families. You know, like we're a big Italian family, and like we could not care. We're just happy that you're here with us. You know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that's why. So all those things that Renee laid out for you, that's why we view IVF to be an abomination, the act of IVF.
I'm gonna have to give like I'm gonna agree with you here, man. I think I would
Yeah,
actually participate in a rally and scream for some people because that's wild.
yeah, yeah. It needs to be abolished.
hmm, not regulated, because some
Exactly.
people in the pro-life movement are actually now talking about regulating IVF because of what Trump the executive order that Trump signed
Mm.
to look into making IVF more available for families that want IVF. But um, they're they want to regulate it as they have done with abortion. And we don't need to regulate it. We just need to abolish it outright.
Yeah, I don't know how you could regulate that and justify it, but unless you could get within like a 1-to-1 accuracy with nothing being, just tarnished. Like, I don't know. If my words are proper there, but like,
Well, something to consider, like with regulating it, even if you're creating one child, that's still bringing someone else into the marriage bed, like the doctors. And, if you have a donor egg or sperm, and the Bible is very clear that that's not something that's acceptable to do.
I've also wondered that myself because I've had some conversations about endometriosis. And I won't pan too far into that, but I've always wondered about it gets in depth. It really does.
Yeah, so you brought up endometriosis, and it sparked a thought in my mind. And I see some comments in the chat that this might actually help some people. There is, and Catholics actually started this. There is a doctor that did some research and came up with a technology that would not just put a band-aid over the problem and just go straight to IVF. And actually they don't want you to use IVF. If their technology fails, then they recommend that people adopt rather than do IVF, because they're Catholic, so they are against it. But it's called NAPRO technology, and it's NAPRO stands for natural procreation. So what they do is they chart a woman's cycle all through the month, and they do like multiple months and kind of see what the patterns are. And
Mhm.
I'm not going to go into detail about what exactly they're charting, but just know they're very detailed about what they're doing. And basically, in studying these women's charts, they can determine what the underlying cause of the infertility is. Now, there are some things that you can't fix there for whatever reason. And in those cases, our belief is that those people should not try to circumvent God, but
Yeah.
should do what God actually wanted them to do in the first place, and that is to adopt, because there are a whole lot of children out there that need to be adopted, and we're creating more that are just sitting in cryogenic prisons. And I personally would not want to be frozen. I don't know about you. And so we're supposed to love others the way we love ourselves. That's not very loving to put somebody in a freezer
I
for
agree.
whoever knows how long.
I agree.
So it's called NAPRO technology. You might look into it, but they 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 look at things like endometriosis, PCOS, and they also look at from the man's perspective what's going on with the man, because sometimes it's not the woman that's the issue,
Hmm.
sometimes it's the man.
I've heard
And so
a
they
lot about that one too.
yeah, so they look at all those things, and they will come up with a treatment plan for those cases, and their success rate is actually way higher than the rate of success for IVF, and they're not creating extra embryos.
Hmm.
So just something for those in the chat to consider, and you yourself, if you come across somebody, you might tell them about it.
I've learned so much in the last we've been here 20 minutes now. And then you know, I'm happy I learned about it because I probably would have said something, more ignorant if I hadn't, sat here and listened to some of the details behind it.
Well,
No,
thank you for listening.
Thank you for educating me.
Yeah, and if I were you, I have some more information in my bio link tree as well. There's a video called "Does Ethical IVF Exist?" And that's a good one to watch as well. And that should lead you
That,
to more information.
that's John Speed, right?
I
Who did
believe
that video?
so. Pretty sure.
I
Yeah.
I go to I go to IVF labs with John Speed and try to
Mm.
talk to parents and help them. So
Yep.
I know the guy.
Yeah,
He's done
he's
a lot of
super
research.
based.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thanks for coming up and hearing us out. I appreciate you.
Alrighty, well, thank you very much.
Yep.
Have a great day.
You
Yeah,
You
God
too.
too.
bless.
Miranda, there's a guy, God Logic, in the request. I don't know if you know who he is. I follow him, but I don't.
Mm.
Um, if you want to break, oh, Kayla left. Okay.
Oh,
Cool, cool.
Maddie says she's
What the?
scheduled to give away her eggs to 10 people next week. So you're adopting your or you're giving donating eggs?
Yeah, I think she's trolling. She said
Yeah,
some
'cause
really
she
Yeah.
just said
gross things.
she said she extracted her eggs and ate them.
Oh, that's gross.
So
Well,
Yeah.
people make jewelry out of embryos, so
Yeah.
that's just gross.
God bless you guys.
you too.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting into this field a bit of conversation, and just wanted to, I guess, hear some of the main arguments. I guess more of the we hear the "my body, my choice" thing that's easily refuted. What are some nuanced arguments that I guess you guys have heard that they've tried to come up with to get around this stuff?
Um, well, we've heard that they're a parasite.
Mm.
Um, we've heard the sentience argument and consciousness, viability. Uh,
What's that argument? The sentience argument. What's that one?
they don't grant personhood to the human being um until they gain sentience in the
Mm.
womb,
Hmm.
which nobody really knows when that is, but they put I guess a time on it of what is it 12 weeks, Miranda? She might be busy with her kids.
Miranda ditched us.
Yeah,
Oh, there
sorry.
she
I
is.
was like, I just opened my iPad and it connected the Bluetooth,
Oh,
but
you're good.
yes, yeah, they're now like they've been all over the place with it. They used to say 8 weeks, they used to say like 20. But the common Philbro sentience position has been the 12-week marker. I guess they have some paper that they really like about it.
So
So,
Yeah.
what's the response to this?
oh, well, we're abolitionists, so it would be a biblical response.
Which okay,
Yeah.
so like yeah, tell me, I'm interested.
Sentience is
Yeah.
not what gives us our value. Our value comes from being made in the image of God.
Okay.
Genesis 9:6 tells us that we are made in the image of God, and that's why we're not to murder one another.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so so when you're arguing this point, obviously with an atheist, does it go away from an abortion argument to now? Does God exist? Does it kind of transition that way, or is it able to? Are you guys able to stick it with the on the topic of abortion?
I mean, it depends on the person you're talking to, but ultimately, any atheist, even if they're not experienced with like metaphysical debates, that is like the framework that it ultimately leads to.
Hmm.
And so, with an atheist, we would absolutely fast track to that conversation, because that's what they truly need to talk about. They need to talk about their justifications for their worldview absent God, and they need the gospel.
Yeah,
So that takes the top priority in those conversations.
yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
so, what do you guys listen to, read, to yeah, like this is the topic. This is what you guys do. This is what you guys specialize in. So I want to get as good as you guys do. I want to start hosting these topics. So what would you guys suggest that I'm listening to? Probably reading some information to get absorbed in it.
But yeah,
Um,
there's a lot like YouTube, like we were talking about earlier, ethical IVF with John Speed, and he has quite a few different um, videos and information. There is the Rescue Those app. It's really good. They have a lot of documentaries and docuseries on there. And then as far as books, a good book is Post-Reformation Row, which you can purchase on abolitionistrising.com. It's a very, very good book. Um,
it's also on
and
Amazon.
and on Amazon. Good to know, good to know. Um, and so that's what I was, and then ultimately the Bible, the gospel is the
Of
best book
course.
to be reading, to be cleansing the mind when engaging with this death culture.
Yeah, for sure. All
Yeah,
right,
I mean, we
sisters.
see this as child sacrifice, and the Bible is full of um, verses dealing with child sacrifice and what happened to nations that participated in it. They were ultimately destroyed.
Hmm.
And so, we're trying to warn other Christians, for one, that they need to get into the fight,
Yeah,
and also just the world just needs the gospel. And one of the tenets of abolition is that it's gospel centered. So everything that we do is based around the Bible.
praise God. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys. I'll be watching a lot. How often are you guys live? Are you guys live often, or is it just kind of rare?
Try to do like 2 times a week at least. Sometimes it'll be more if I'm feeling up to it. But
Hmm.
if you follow Leah, she go joins panels on, or if you could just look on TikTok, but Reformed Labs,
Reformed Labs.
either
Okay.
Hmm.
Kanoa at Reformed Labs or Adrian at Reformed Labs, and they host these debates as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm following. I'm
What is
following you too, Leah.
Miranda, what's the podcast that I sent you? I always forget the name of the
Apologia,
podcast. No, it's the
oh
guys who talk about the presuppositional apologetics. Revealed? Is it Revealed Apologetics?
yes, yep,
Yeah, that's a good
yep,
podcast to listen to as well, as far as like learning tag, the transcendental argument for God.
Hmm.
We That's how we approach a lot of the conversation is just getting to their worldview right away and showing them that without God, they can't make any kind of certainty claims. They
Right.
can't they can't do anything. So um, that normally makes the conversation go a lot faster than just poking around at like the science of everything and why it's wrong and the sentience and all of that. So um, I would definitely look into revealed apologetics.
For sure. For sure. I see a few people are mentioning how they love their neighbor and what happened to I love my neighbor. It's ironic because they're forgetting about their neighbor in the womb that they could just
Hmm.
unalive. That's
Amen.
just
Yep.
ironic. But
Yes.
yeah, sisters, I appreciate you guys. Lee, I'm following you as well. And
Awesome.
so I'll be tuning in. You guys keep doing your work. I'm praying for you. I pray that God leads you. I pray that God speaks through you and that the Holy Spirit fills you up and leads you to speak with power and authority and with conviction. May God continue to strengthen you guys. Keep up the
Thank
good
you.
work.
Thank you so
thank you.
much.
I appreciate that.
Of course. Take care, ladies.
God bless.
Hello.
So,
Hello.
Shenny,
Um, just real quick. So Alex in the comments is saying that they're Christian and pro-choice. Don't know if she, I'm not sure which, would like to come up and have a conversation about that or not.
Yeah, well, I tried to invite him, but they only have 6 followers, so highly,
Okay.
yeah,
highly
I was about
doubtful.
to say there's no request option, unfortunately. They might not be able to get up here.
Graves into gardens.
You realize Catholicism is a
Hi.
branch of Christianity, Alex.
How old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay. Um, I'm assuming you're a Christian
I am
by
a Christian,
your
yes.
name. Yeah. Are you
Yes.
pro-choice, pro-life?
I'm pro-life.
Okay. Miranda, go ahead. I was just
Okay. So, what's your like pro-life view? Like, do you think that like abortion should be um regulated like incrementally, or do you advocate for it to be completely wiped out? Like that
I
it's murder and should be treated as such under the law?
I believe that abortion is murder. However, I don't believe that people who are in the like it got abortions maybe like 20 years ago should be criminalized, since that would be unconstitutional. But if that were to change right now, I do believe that it should be penalized. Yes.
We agree.
yeah, we
Okay,
agree with
yeah.
that.
It's not retroactive. That's not what we're calling for. We're calling for criminalizing abortion um, for all who are involved
I think that it should
currently.
be. And for me personally, I know like a lot of people say that like in the case of rape or incest that there should be like um an excuse for it. But me personally, my biological mother, I was conceived through rape. It was not consensual. She was only 15 and she gave me up for adoption. And I'm very
Praise
thankful
God.
for that.
Yeah, praise
Um,
God.
however, she has like two more children that are like 18 and 19. And then he has four other kids. So we are split between four different families.
Hmm.
But I'm still very thankful for that choice that she did make, because I don't think that how someone is conceived equals to their quality of life.
Right. And you wouldn't think that you should have been punished for the crimes of your father, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's the argument we
That's
like
not
to
my
give.
fault.
You don't punish the child for something that the father did.
No.
So I'm glad your mom chose life. That's awesome.
I do I don't understand though like how you're saying that IVF is an abomination. For me personally, like I had a miscarriage which was very much wanted. My husband and I have been married for almost 2 years, and we actually have like a fertility appointment in about an hour.
Hmm.
And we've just really been struggling, and for me, I think that the Bible says to be fruitful and multiply. That's what it says in Genesis. And I don't understand how, for some people, IVF might be their only option, how that could be something that's bad.
Well, the reason we say it's an abomination is because there are the average number of live births to the embryos that are lost either through attrition or they are discarded or given to medical science is 1 in 30. So for every one live birth, 30 are destroyed.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, we're just
Ha-
taught
ha-
like the whole process of everything, and like even when I was like in high school and stuff, they don't teach you about like ovulation or anything like that. So
mhm,
I've just heard of like what that is, but I don't really know truly what it is. But I did,
mhm.
when I had my previous fertility appointment, they asked me if I wanted to do like genetic testing along with my HSG, which I did the HSG, very painful, but some women need to get that done to find out what's going on with them, and
Yeah.
like semen analysis and everything like that. Um, but I didn't agree how they said that we can check you for different abnormalities and be able to like extradite, if I'm using the right word, like something that would have like a deformity or something, which I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't really care. I think a child is beautiful, like regardless. Me personally, like I'm an RBT, so I'm a registered behavioral technician. So I work with like the autism community and I have for many years. So I don't think that that's like a bad thing. So I wouldn't want to get rid of something. I wouldn't want to get rid of my child just because they have a disability. So that kind of like really irritated me.
Do, do Just asking a question here. Did they have you sign a form that, like, where you were waiving that test?
Yeah, and I
This
waived it. I
test
was
to be
like, I'm
done?
not doing
Okay.
that.
Okay, I was just checking because I didn't know how that worked, but I do know that they do test in a lot of cases because there are a lot of people out there that they don't want a Down syndrome baby. They don't want one that might have any kind of abnormality at all. They want the perfect child. And
And I
so I
think that's
didn't
so
know.
wrong. Like, I personally am struggling with infertility. And like
Right.
these kids that I take care of are from ages like 3 to like 6 years old. And they are like the
Mhm.
light of my life. They're not my kid, but they give me so much happiness.
I
Hmm.
hear you. The I have 4 children now, but after I had my first child, I had secondary infertility and could not get pregnant for anything. I wanted another child so bad, and um, I finally was able to get pregnant with my daughter, and she's a complete miracle. And then God blessed us with 2 more because we kind of changed our thinking on our fertility, and we decided that we were going to leave that up to God. If He wanted to bless us with more, great. If not, that was fine too. We have our family, and we'll be content with that. Now, I don't know if you were here earlier, but I mentioned to someone else that there is a technology that they that a Catholic doctor came up with to answer infertility, and it's called NAPRO technology. And if you go to an IVF clinic, they're not going to suggest this at all, because with NAPRO technology, they actually, if it fails for whatever reason, then they will tell you not to do IVF, but rather to go the adoption route. Now, NAPRO technology, they are looking for the underlying cause of your fertility issues. So if you have like, they can detect if you had endometriosis or PCOS or like,
Yeah,
it's like a whole,
I have the PCOS, and then my
uh-huh,
husband has like a normal count when he got
right.
his analysis back. But however, he has 3% morphology, which I don't really understand what that means since everything's so new. But yeah.
Yeah, but with NAPRO technology, once they determine what your problem is, which it sounds like you already have that determination, then they will put you on like a regimen of treatment that will help with the PCOS. And it's actually a higher success rate than IVF. IVF is like they can't promise you that you will even have a successful pregnancy, because the rate is so low. With NAPRO technology, they increase the percentage by a good deal. I can't remember the exact numbers, but because they're treating the underlying cause of it. And can I just ask you, are you a Christian?
I am a Christian, yes.
You are. Okay, so um, for Christians, what I like to point out is just that sometimes we may not even understand what God is doing in our lives, the fertility thing, in regards to anything really, but with fertility specifically. Um, and sometimes he has a different plan than what we want. And I get the desire to want your own child. I do. And I sympathize with you because, I dealt with secondary fertility, and my both of my sisters lost babies, and one of them, she was not able to conceive. She conceived, but then she miscarried. And they finally went through IVF, and I have a twin niece and nephew, and they are blessings from God. I'm not at all taking away from their value just because that's how they were conceived. And because I think IVF is an abomination, they are not abominations. They are they're blessings to our family. And
Mhm.
so I do feel for you. I'm not saying you know, I'm not saying you're evil, wicked, or anything like that. I just want you to consider maybe some biblical examples of people that were infertile. And
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up was like Hannah and Rachel.
right,
And I was
right.
going to tie it back to the be fruitful and multiply.
Hmm.
He does call us to be fruitful and to multiply, but he never says that it's in our control. He always tells us that he is in control of those things and that we're to trust him. And even in the hard times when we're not understanding like why our desires of wanting to do what God calls us to do, that those prayers aren't being answered, that we need to lean on him and trust his sovereignty. Just like Hannah, just like Rachel, and there's others, I'm sure, but those are the first two coming to
Right.
mind.
Yeah. And, Hannah, she was so desperate for a child that, she cried out to God. And Eli thought she was drunk because she was so distraught. And then he told her, "You're going to have a child." And she immediately got up and, like, her whole countenance changed. And she went away, trusting God that what he said was going to happen would happen. And God blessed her. And she gave that child back to God for his service. And then God turned around and blessed her with more children later on. She had, like, I think 5 or 7 other children. And so when we trust God, he may give us that desire, but he also could change our heart to desire to maybe adopt. And but we have to do things God's way. And there's a really good book, and I wish I could get it in your hands somehow. But you can get it on Amazon, and it was written by a organization called Rescue Those, a senator in Oklahoma who is an abolitionist. He wrote it, and it's very well researched, and it talks about the all the medical things with IVF, but it also talks about the spiritual aspects. And the book is called. Let me look it up real quick. Actually, I probably have one over here. Um, it's a short little booklet. It's not long at all, but I would recommend that you get a hold of it somehow. And I think it's only like maybe $8 on Amazon. It's not much at all. Um, no, apparently I don't have it on here. It's loving your IVF neighbor, I think is the name of it. And it's it's really good for Christians to read. Even if you're not considering IVF, I highly recommend it. But especially for you, if you're considering, like I said, please don't think that we're being not being compassionate. We do understand the anguish. I mean, we're all three mothers too, so we know what that desire is like, and God puts it in us, that desire to be fruitful and multiply. And so we do we'll pray for you, that whatever you decide will be God honoring, and that you will um, that God will give you the desires of your heart. Looks like she's muted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What was I missed it. What was the name of that book? Because I'm gonna grab it too.
It's Loving Your IVF Neighbor, I think is what it's called. I can also give you a negative example of somebody in the Bible that went outside of God's plan for um, for bearing fruit, and that was Abraham and Sarah. And she couldn't conceive for whatever, and they were old, you know, and God had promised them about 25 years before Isaac came along that they were going to have their seed was going to be like more than the stars, you know, and they got impatient, and Sarah gave him her handmaid. Oh, she left. But we see how that ended up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just real quick, Alex, God never once said he wants you to live for yourself. He said, live for me. Die to your flesh, pick up your cross daily, and follow me. Sorry.
No,
That's all
you're
right.
fine. You're fine. I was just saying that because that was a really, I hope she thinks about um that
You know,
for
it
sure.
can be like we were talking about earlier, it can be so hard for people to hear that. And
Hmm.
it almost seems like when people see it and like realize that's the truth, it's really hard to work through that and like come to the other side of it and admit like, okay, this isn't
Mm-hmm.
going to be answered for me right now or ever. Like they have to face the fact of the reality that they might not ever biologically
Mm-hmm.
have children. And
Yeah,
that's
and you have to
hard.
be
Like
content with that.
yeah, that's a really hard thing to hold on, or yeah, to hold on to.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I want to have compassion for people, but at the same time, it's like there's more babies dying through IVF than there
Mm-hmm.
are abortions. So, like,
Yeah, it's a tricky balance for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to consider like not only your own children, but also like all of like not just some of your neighbors, but all of your neighbors. And
Mm-hmm.
right.
I think you hit the nail on the head that it's like it's difficult for people because like our flesh fights against submitting to God's sovereignty tooth and nail.
Hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's a hard hurdle to get over. But God is abundantly faithful and loving.
Right.
So I really hopefully she thinks about it because we need to trust in God's sovereignty. That it reminds me of like the Proverbs 14:12, that verse that I found the other day about like there is a way that seems right to man, but its
Mm-hmm.
end is the way to death. And so it might
Right.
Yep.
seem like it's right, and you might have like a God-given desire to have children, which is good, but when you walk down that path of man, it can lead to really, really bad things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You make a mess.
I think also if somebody wants to have a child, that's a good desire, right?
Right.
And if they really strongly want to have a child, so that they are seeking this practice, maybe they should consider that God has given them such a strong desire because He wants them to adopt.
Yeah.
Like that's a good thing. And
Hmm.
sometimes that might be hard to hear or hard to consider. And I'm certainly not saying that like um I, here's what I'll say. I think that if somebody hears that being said, somebody hears like somebody like me saying, "Well, you don't understand, right? Like you don't understand because you have children of your own." First off, that's just
Mm-hmm.
not true. We were barren for 5 years, so it's
Yep.
not. It's just not true. Like I do understand, but
Yes.
Hmm.
secondly, even if that wasn't true, um, why is your rejection for adoption so high? Like what
Yeah.
you need to consider something that God has given from the beginning, and even adoption is built into even salvation itself.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to consider why that's something you would reject with such a passion.
Yeah. And we see that a lot out there at the clinic. A lot of people will bring up adoption as a possibility, and they're like, "Nope, not going to do that. No way." And they don't ever expound on that. But it's interesting to see that objection come up so um, they're so passionate about it.
If I could speak as somebody who's not in their shoes,
which means you can completely discount it if you want to. That I would be. I would question whether there's an idolatry problem there. Whether you want
Yeah.
something that God doesn't want you to have, and in fact, He's kind of using the natural processes to push you towards something that He does want you to have.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, my sister struggled for over 5 years to get pregnant. Um, she did eventually get pregnant with my nephew, but she did find peace in knowing that if that was not God's will for her to bear her own children, then God had put in place other avenues that she could go through, adoption being one of them.
Yeah.
You find a lot that like people who go to adopt, that once they adopt, their womb opens up. I mean, that's a
Uh huh.
common story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's probably not. There's probably some kind of naturalistic explanation. Like you know, I'm not gonna like, you know, I'm not gonna fully 100% say, oh yeah, that's because God wanted you to do this, you did it, and now He opens your womb. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna
Sure.
like
Yeah.
say like 1,000, 1,000,000% that's what happens every time, right? But at
Hmm.
the same time, I mean, God, if even if it is naturalistic, God created it that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's something there that like when you have some kind of trust in God and you get that type of peace that comes from obedience and trusting in His providence, that God gives you good gifts, you know?
Yeah.
Right. And like stress can do so much to your body.
Mm-hmm.
And when there is a woman who has such a desire to be a mother and struggles with fertility, there's a lot of stress involved in that. So a lot of times once they do adopt, there's not that stress that's going on because they finally have a child. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that helps as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're still good friends. But he had two kids and they were both boys and they tried to have more kids and tried to have more kids and I was barren for 5 years. They were barren for 8 years after their second child. And they were trying and trying and trying and they just decided it was time to adopt, and they adopted. And as soon as they adopted, they found out that this child that they adopted had two other siblings, and so they're like, "Well, we're Christians. We're going to adopt those other two." So they adopted the two other siblings with that child.
That's
And
amazing.
Oh,
as soon as they
wow.
did that, his wife got pregnant with a daughter.
That's even more
Mm.
amazing.
Wow.
That's
So
so cool.
yeah, so over the course of 2 years, they grew from a four person household to what was that, five, six, seven, eight
8.
person household. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
That's beautiful. That like brings a
It
tear to my
is.
eye. That's
I
like,
know.
that's just God, really. He's so
Yeah.
good.
God's ways are so much better than ours. We make a mess, don't we?
Yeah, I always struggle with the fact that I have three kids because it feels selfish because I have three children and I know that there are people out there who don't have any children, um, and I can't have any more because of what happened after I had my third child. But that desire to have kids is still there. So it's like if I could adopt, I would adopt in a heartbeat. But there's obviously other obstacles in my life that are preventing that. Um, but it just always feels like if I could have had, five more kids, I totally would have. Like I've always been somebody that's loved children, and God closed my womb in 2018, and I have had to struggle with that and like deal with the fact that we have three children and they're blessings, and I'm embracing just being the mother that He called me to be. But it's still it's still hard even after having children, like knowing I cannot carry anymore.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
It's tough. No, it is tough, and I know it's harder on you women than it is even on us. But it gets harder on the men too. The more children that we have, um, it's kind of like as we grow and love these children more, and as men, our love for our children grows, and we see the value more and more, like present in front of us. It's like every time that my wife is pregnant, or every time we're going through anything like that, or every time, like, I feel like every time I'm more excited or more present as the situations grow, or as it happens more and more. So all that to say that you know my when we have miscarriages now, I mean, I feel like now it affects me almost as much as my wife. you know,
Yeah.
because
For sure.
it's just tough. It's
Yeah,
tough.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
unfortunately, so
But
many people discount the father's loss when a miscarriage happens. I saw it
Hmm.
happen when we lost our first baby, where everybody, I mean, obviously they were coming to me, but there weren't a whole lot of people outside of, close family who was saying anything to my husband. I'm like, he suffered a loss too.
Hmm.
He was just as broken up over that as I was.
yeah, it's different.
I wonder
Mhm.
if that leads into like, because I haven't been talking about IVF for very long, but I feel like so far, a lot of the times, like, it's very different when talking to like the woman versus a man who's like either usually gone through IVF. And a lot of times, like, I wonder if those differences that we're talking about is why like the men seem so very angry about it. I wonder if that's like kind of how that hurt that they feel. Like, I wonder if that's a result of it because I've noticed a difference for sure.
Um, yeah, I think men do respond in anger to those things. The interesting thing that we see with IVF, though, is that in a lot of cases, the men are they're very passive. Like, my wife wants it, so we're gonna do it. And it's
Mhm.
an interesting dynamic. It's like, because they could care less one way or the other. They just want to keep their wife happy, I guess. So we see a lot of that um, out there.
Yeah, it's I think, like, if you're running, I've not been to the IVF labs as much as you, but I would imagine if the men had never had a child before, because this was the case for me before I had Alana, right? There's just
Hmm.
no real, like, I just, like, honestly didn't feel anything. And I don't
Yeah.
want to sound crass or like anything. I just want to kind of describe like what it felt like. And that's just the truth, right? I didn't feel anything. And
Hmm.
it just changed everything when I had more kids. And so I want to assume the best of these men, the best
Hmm.
in the sense that maybe they were like me, who I just didn't know. I mean, I, I knew in the sense that, I mean, like, they're not like me in the sense that, yeah, like, they know what they're doing. Like, they know it's human. They know it's children, right? Like, they know it's theirs. But there's no emotional attachment in the same way that I had no emotional attachment. You know, I don't know. I mean, I think that men struggle with that a lot in the beginning. But if they have children, I find it difficult if, like, a man has, more than three children or more than two children, even, you know, and they're going through IVF, for them, I find it difficult for them to not know, like, that's my child, and not just is that my child, but I have somewhat of a face and an experience to attach it to. You know,
Right. Yeah.
do you find, Renee? Do you find that, like, when you're in front of the IVF labs, do you find that a lot of them are just barren zero children, or do you find that it's a mixed bag more than not?
Um, I think most of the people that we've come across have been ones that are struggling to conceive in the first place. Either that or they're having miscarriages and they're
Zero
just
children.
trying, yeah. And yeah, so and the ones that have had children in the past, they're usually IVF children. So yeah, we don't
Yeah,
see a whole lot of people coming in for secondary infertility.
right.
So I mean, there are some because I did talk to one a couple of weeks ago. She was like, "Oh yeah, that's what I'm dealing with." So there are some, but it's mostly people
So,
that do not have any children.
gotcha. And the only reason I bring that up is because I think the men just are completely disconnected. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and I mean, probably even the women. I mean, and I'm going to ask this maybe from y'all's perspective because you guys have been pregnant. You know, but you know, before getting pregnant, did you have an inkling of an idea? I mean, I imagine the answer is no, right? Like, that's why I was speaking on your behalf. But, like, do you have an inkling of an idea how it was going to feel? How it was going to feel to have that child inside of you? Like, how your hormones were going to react and cause you to have such compassion towards the child that's already growing in you? I, like, can you, before ever getting pregnant, ever, could you have ever imagined that kind of feeling?
No,
No,
Like,
no.
not for
I
me.
mean,
No.
no one can ever prepare you for what you're going to experience. Like, there's
Yeah.
no amount of a woman saying, "Oh, just wait until you feel the little butterflies," or "Wait until you feel it like completely flip over," and "Wait till you see the heart or hear the heartbeat." You cannot imagine that until you've had that
yeah.
Yeah.
experience.
And
I mean, even I don't know about the other moms in here, but for me, like the moment I found out that I was pregnant, there was like it was just not something I ever thought I would feel. Like you can't explain
Yeah.
that feeling. Like there's just it's
Unspeakable joy.
yeah, you can't explain it. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
this is, kind of besides the point, but I smoked when I got pregnant with my first, and like, I quit cold turkey the day I found out I quit because
Same.
because there was something there that was like I had so much love for this child, and
Hmm.
I didn't care about what would happen if I quit cold turkey, like the withdrawals or whatever, the headaches. Like it was worth it if it meant that my child would be healthy, and because I loved my child so much, and
Hmm.
I was 5 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, it was actually
I
kind of amazing because I had been a smoker too, before my first pregnancy. And as like even before I took the test, I knew, like I just knew that I was pregnant. And it was one thing to do something that was damaging to my body, but I wasn't about to do something that was going to hurt my child. And I quit cold turkey, and it was a blessing because I never had any withdrawals.
Yeah,
yeah, I just
I
wonder.
just sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. Like, I just wonder. The like maybe you guys can. So let's. I'm just trying to, like, create a story in my head. Okay. And so, but I need your help because you guys are women. Women get
Hmm.
this thing, and I say women because I've never had it before, and I don't know men who've had it before. Like the baby fever thing. Like whatever that's called.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
don't get
Hmm.
me wrong. Like, I love babies, but I'm not like, oh, we need to have one now, not like emotionally. I'm more like men are more duty bound, like duty driven. So like, I'm like, yes, let's have children, but I'm not like emotionally drawn to let's have children. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I
Well,
hope
Yeah,
that makes
I
I
would
sense.
hear you.
say I would say you're not maternally drawn to have children because you're not a mother. I think that's a
Sure.
maternal, like
Yeah,
nurturing instinct that's instilled in women. I mean, that men will just never, they'll never experience that because that's not what God created them to be. Just like we
yeah,
won't
Right.
ever experience like what you were just talking about, the duty part of it. Like we look at our children as people that we want to raise and nurture and be maternal to. You guys look at your families as like, it's my duty to protect and serve and provide
and
for my
provide.
family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I guess the reason I was asking is because I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a woman who wants badly to have children. She has this baby fever, whatever you want to call it. I want to put myself in her shoes, right?
Hmm.
Yep.
She really badly wants to have children, and I want to be compassionate towards that.
Yeah,
Now,
Hmm.
obviously, this is not at the expense of IVF, but again, if we're going to be Christians, we need to kind of attempt to really understand this. And
Right.
and I guess how would you? I almost feel like I'm asking a biased people this question, but at the same time, I want to hear kind of your thoughts. But like, when how would you compare the baby fever? Like my wife, for example. Let me just talk about this. Like an experience I can tell you about. Like when we didn't have Alana, we didn't even have one child. Um, we only tried for like 3 months, and we got pregnant. Okay, that was our first. We were barren for 5 years after that, but
Hmm.
but 3 months. That's it, right? And that's really fast, right?
hmm,
But I remember during that 3 months, I remember my wife's pain. I remember how she kept doubting herself. She kept doubting her body. She kept questioning whether she was sufficient or whether, like all these things that, man, it was sad to be there and to continue to have to tell her, like, it's not you, like to continue to have to tell her, it's okay. God just doesn't have it here for us right now. Just trust God. Like to
Yeah.
continue to have to say that. It was tough as a husband, even to like be in that situation and not understand how she feels because I have no attachment to this, but still like answer her as a compassionate husband. And so all that to say, um, I saw that. Like I saw this what somebody might call baby fever, right? I
hmm.
saw like my wife's like huge drive to do everything right, to make every step, to every effort. We didn't even have a child, and she wasn't even pregnant with the hormones yet, right? Like, do, do you guys recall that kind of feeling before having children?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, definitely,
Yep.
but more so like you guys had Alana, and then it took you 5 more years to conceive again. We had a similar situation, and we were when I think when our oldest was like 2.5, we started trying, and I could not get pregnant, and I actually kept getting cysts on my ovary. And every
Oh
time I would
wow.
get that, the way they would treat it is to give me birth control pills to dissolve it because they didn't want to have to do surgery. They just wanted it to dissolve. So then they're putting me back on the birth control pills, messing up my hormones, stopping me from conceiving. And so we went through this multiple times. And my symptoms for having a cyst were the same symptoms of being pregnant, like in the beginning stages. The only difference was I did have some pain, whereas I didn't have pain when I conceived. Um, and so I kept having to take pregnancy tests thinking I was pregnant. And every time it just crushed me, just depression, just. I wanted that second baby so bad. And then one day my mom called me and she said, "Guess what? Your sister's pregnant." And I said, "Which one?" Because my middle sister, she already at that point had three children and was done. But so I was thinking she was talking about my youngest sister who had no children yet. And she said she named my middle sister. And I just started crying and I was like, why? I just want one more baby. And she doesn't want any more. She has her three. She was done at that point. The very next day, I had a doctor's appointment scheduled because of another cyst on my ovary. And the doctor would always also do pregnancy tests. And she told me that day, she said, "No, we're not going to do a pregnancy test. We're going to skip the pregnancy test because I know how much that hurts you every time. So we'll just look at the cyst and see what we need to do about it." So she does the sonogram. And my 4-year old son is standing there and he says, "Look, mommy, there's a baby in there." I said, "No, there's not. It's a cyst." I was pregnant. I found out the day after my sister found out. I was
Wow.
pregnant. And I was just in complete shock. Well, come to find out, a lot of my problems, a lot of the pain that I was experiencing up to that point was actually because I had appendicitis and I had to have my appendectomy when I was 10 weeks pregnant with my daughter. So when I say she's a miracle, she was a miracle because she she was conceived in spite of the fact that I had been on birth control off and on for many years between her and her brother, and she survived me having an appendectomy. And there's like some other things that happened that I won't go into, but yeah, I understand that feeling so well. And when you were talking about that, it just brought up all those emotions for me, how bad
Like
my
the
baby
baby
fever was.
fever.
Yeah. I mean, you're desperate. You really are. And that's why when I go out to the IVF lab, I do have to remember those feelings. And I try so hard to be compassionate while speaking the truth that it is wrong to do IVF, especially for Christians. I mean, we ought to know better.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I do.
I was just
on
re-listening to Callie's documentary on IVF,
Hmm.
Weeping Time. I was re-listening to it
Yeah.
this morning, and you know, I really respected how much time and energy went into the documentary on talking about that issue, on talking about like women in pain, like women, mothers in suffering, in difficult
Yeah.
times, in you know. Um,
Yep.
at the time that it came out, I had two children. I think, yeah, I had one, and then my wife was pregnant with one. Um, and it was kind of a like, I'm not gonna lie, like I was kind of like, man, I wish they'd just talk about IVF more. And that's what I was thinking at the time. But
Yeah.
now I look back at that, I'm like, man, I'm really glad he took the time to walk through all these details and to go through the pain that these families are going through and stuff because it's such an important part of the story,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah,
Not
it
that any
is.
of that pain excuses what they're doing,
Right.
but yeah,
Yeah, I was kind of on the flip side. I was very fertile. I was pregnant 3 times in 2.5 years.
Mhm.
And so when we had like our first baby we lost, and then our two daughters, um, my second daughter was born a week before my sister got married. And so when she got married, that was her heart's desire, was to have a baby. And then she struggled with infertility for 5 years, and just the complete heartbreak that she went through every month when she wasn't pregnant. Like, I would be on the phone with her sometimes for hours with her just crying.
yeah,
But there was also a part where And she has since asked for forgiveness for this, but she had a lot of resentment towards me.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, why was it so easy for you to get pregnant? I was like, I don't know. I was like, other than it being God's will, I don't have any other answer for you. And don't get me wrong, she absolutely adores and loves her nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
But it was hard on her because she wanted it so badly. And there were a few times that I actually started feeling guilty for being fertile. Not that I had any control over it, but still, because seeing your baby sister completely devastated month in, month out, every single month is heartbreaking. I was actually, other than her husband, I was the first one she told she was pregnant. And she actually came over with the pregnancy test and pulled it out, and I instantly started crying. Like I don't think I've ever been so happy for someone else in my entire life. And
Praise
but
God.
she reminds me of the story of Hannah.
Yeah.
She prayed fervently for a child, and as soon as she found out she was pregnant, she told God, "This child is yours."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess in my head, I'm walking through this story and I'm trying to be in the shoes of somebody considering IVF, especially because Renee said that, most of them are going to be women who've never had children. And I just wonder if just, obviously this is God knows better than Jacob, right? Like let's just put that out there at the front set. But I do wonder, like, if these mothers had that feeling that they have when they're pregnant, like if they just actually had that child in their womb, if they actually had that natural response to a child that they love in their womb already, like if they knew that before going in, if they would ever make the same decision. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I know that walks dangerously close to kind of the second victim thing for mothers who murder their children. It really does. I mean, I'm not blind to this or trying to be inconsistent or anything, but it is a different situation in the sense that they do want to have children, and wanting to have children is a natural and good thing. So it's just so tough, like, as a man, to stand here and like pretend like I know that, you know? Now, that being said, I always make this funny joke about like leftists who are like advocating for abortion. My body, my choice. Your body's not affected. And if they're like, college kids with no children, I'm like, man, I know what a uterus does better than you. My wife has had 4 children, okay? Like, I know about it, what a uterus does way more than you do. Like, I know what bearing children looks like and what pregnancy looks like more than you can ever imagine, okay? So I'll say that to like college kids sometimes because, I'm a father of 4, you know?
Yeah.
But it's one of my favorite lines. But that being said, I don't know. There's a lot of things I don't know. With obviously women who have been pregnant. That's different category there. But I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to like think through that whole topic, that whole difficult, what do you call it, situation to speak into. I know God's word is sufficient, and so I don't have like any. Like I've preached in front of IVF labs before, you know, but and so I don't have any shame in like saying this is what the scripture says, and not being and not being afraid of like somebody's life experiences making that not true, because it is regardless, right? Um, but it's also appropriate for me to try to be empathetic. So kind of working through that, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely a fine line.
Right? It's that feeling of you want to stand firm on God's word, but at the same time, you don't necessarily want to discount the emotions of others and what they're dealing with. It's sometimes hard to separate the two.
Yeah, the very first time I went out there, I did not want to take my children because I had that in my mind that, you know, these women are hurting. They want to have their own children. And what is that going to do to them emotionally? And then I realized, you know what? I'm not going to hide my children and the fact that I have children from them because I have a story to tell. And I also have the truth of God's word. And, I'm going to stand on those things and I'm going to speak the truth, but I'm also going to love on those women. And I've prayed with women and that I've had conversations with before and just I've I don't condemn anybody. Like there's this one couple that comes to mind and they had already been through several cycles of IVF when I met them and she was there to get tested because what they have to do they have to make sure your womb is ready for implantation before they can just put the embryo in. And she was there to make to for the testing for that stage. And then I saw them again when they were coming back for a second time for the testing because the first time she wasn't ready yet. And I had very good conversations with them both times, and they knew where we stood, and they also could tell that we were very compassionate towards them. And I had prayed with them and told them we were praying for them, and it's just it's so different in some ways from abortion than because there is that aspect of they really want children, and with abortion a lot of those people they don't want children or they don't want any more children. So it's so tricky.
Ashley, if you'd like to come up, you're welcome to. If not, if there's anybody watching who wants to join who disagrees, feel free to join up and have a conversation with us. If not, I'll probably just wrap up the stream for the day because we had some good conversations. So, or you too, Mrs. East Texas.
Who is Mrs. East Texas referring to when she is saying he could stop it if he wanted to, or
I
he
think
could stop if he wanted?
I thank God because I don't know. It seems like how she's talking that
He
she might be a Christian.
specifically brought up IVF. Did he say anything about the people causing us to be infertile?
Yeah.
Is he
Maybe she is
talking
referring to God.
is,
Yeah.
is she
No, that's
talking um
Oh,
yeah,
maybe
'cause I
talking
think
about
somebody
Jacob.
said that IVF wasn't in the Bible or something, like it wasn't around during when the Bible was written.
I mean surrogacy was around.
Yeah.
The concept of the idea of like taking control of your fertility, be going against what God wants us to do is there.
Yep. It is. And any way you look at it, IVF is child sacrifice. And the Bible is clear on child sacrifice.
Any of you guys in the comments, y'all are more than welcome to hit the request button and actually come have a conversation so you're not limited to your text in the comments. Go by a lot quicker.
Yep.
We could wrap it up. I'm gonna start inviting people.
I invited Ashley already once, but
Oh, she turned her requests off, so she's not coming up.
here we go. Perhaps this is somebody who disagrees. Trinity?
Hi, I just don't really understand
Oh.
like the prompt. Could you like further explain it to me?
Yeah, first of all, just for TikTok purposes, are you an adult?
Yeah, I'm 20.
Okay, lovely. We are against IVF. We're abolitionists, so we view IVF to be child sacrifice, and it goes against God's word. And so Trump's executive order to expand access to IVF um, is really, really bad for those reasons.
Okay, so like I'm gonna assume like do you believe like abortion's okay or anything like that? No?
Well,
No.
abortion should be abolished.
Okay. Okay. And I could agree on that. Um, okay. So like you just think like almost that like IVF is like satanic.
Well, it goes against God's design for procreation.
Okay.
So
So
there's a couple so there's first one reason is God's sovereignty over conception. To the sanctity of life and the fate of the human embryos. So how they discard image bearers based off of like arbitrary grading systems and that sort of thing. Which we can go into more detail of. And then the procreation through the means should be through the means that God ordained, which I kind of touched on that. And then ultimately, trusting in God and having faith in his sovereignty, even through suffering. And
right.
so ultimately,
That
we're
he will
calling
get
Christians
you,
to be
yeah.
faithful to his sovereignty, even in suffering.
Yes. So you just believe that like if God had a plan for them to get pregnant, that should be the natural way, not through IVF.
Well, it should be like in adherence to God's design that He's given us in Scripture, in the concepts that He's given us in the Bible. So,
Yes, as in like IVF isn't natural, it's just like a science based.
Right.
Okay, I could understand. I don't know if you want people who like disagree. I just wanted to understand the prompt. So if you wanted someone who like disagrees up in here, I could
Can I
understand.
can I explain
I
further
disagree.
that really quick? One of the other reasons is that for every child born via IVF, there are around 20 to 30 children that have been sacrificed by selective reduction, sacrificed because they are lower quality, or they're donated to science or frozen. And so the numbers for the type of for the amount of human beings that are sacrificed in IVF
sorry.
is substantially higher than the numbers that are murdered via abortion.
Oh, really? I did not
Yes.
know that.
Yeah, so that's another reason why this is disgusting, because IVF costs tens of thousands of dollars. And
Yes.
so whenever you reduce the cost for it, you make it more available. And so the numbers of human beings being slaughtered is going to increase by a substantial amount, more than we've
Wait,
ever
wait,
seen in the
wait.
history of the world.
Wait. I don't
And
think those are
Mm-hmm.
so,
actual human beings being
well,
slaughtered.
I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the Christian right now. So,
I'm just being honest, bro. Like if
yeah.
Yeah,
they
we'll
Well,
want
talk to
children.
you in a minute. We'll talk
yeah,
to you in
so
a
I'm
minute.
talking to the Christian right now because I want her to understand the significance of why this is a
Are you
disgusting
saying human
executive
beings
order.
slaughtered every time a woman has a
Cosmic,
period?
if you can't wait your turn, then you can go back down to the comments. Take your
So
pick. Thank you.
yeah,
Shane
so I
had
mean
enough. Sorry,
yeah,
Jacob.
okay,
Please continue.
that's
Sorry.
okay. That's okay. So that's really one of the major reasons with this executive order, on how cheap it makes it and how available it makes the process of IVF. It could be equivalent to anything worse than Roe versus Wade ever could have dreamt of being.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm uneducated about it, so I didn't know. But I appreciate you educating me
No,
about it because I was really not aware that it was almost worse than abortion. But
yeah, no, that's why I wanted to give those proper explanations. Is I heard a lot of genuine interest and genuine lack of knowledge there. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. So do you think like Trump's like aware of like those things? Or do you think he's just trying to do it because he like wants women, you know, to feel like they're heard, you know? Or do you think he's like actually like has knowledge on these like things that
Yeah, that's a good
worse
question.
than abortion?
I don't think Trump cares, to be honest. I mean, if we look at his rhetoric, in relation to abortion, he was speaking against, before he was corrected, he was speaking against the 6-week ban in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
He does not believe that human beings are equal or should be treated equal from conception. And so I'm sure he did know that there's like a 20-1 or 30-1 ratio of IVF children being slaughtered. I'm sure even if he did know that, it wouldn't matter to him, honestly.
Okay.
Just because of his previous action related to abortion,
Okay. Yeah. Because I feel like it's really hard to tell like his true like intentions versus like him just trying to get like people to like agree with him, vote with like for him, like just become like
Yeah,
more in favor of the people. Like it's just really hard when like you're a president. I feel like you can't really share like your honest opinion because obviously they just want
he
people to vote him into office and like be favorable, you know?
he is notorious for flip-flopping on the issues.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
what I've seen. Yeah.
it's because he's wanting to get votes. Now he's in office and he's going to go, he's already signed an executive order to do this. He's got the votes. And if you look at who he put in charge of Doge, he's participated in IVF. So
Okay.
that's another reason for him to go through with this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really think he cares about the science or about what's happening, really. And
Okay.
his wife even wrote a pro-choice book about how she's pro-choice. So
Um.
yeah, he's
Yeah, I could see.
And made a
So did you
yeah.
video.
guys vote at all?
Did we vote? We did
Yes,
not
I
vote
know
for
it has
Trump.
nothing to
No,
do with the prompt. Did you vote for Kamala?
no.
No.
Yeah, I didn't
no.
No,
vote at
yeah,
all
I just wrote in. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't vote for
I
either of
I
them.
I hit the skip button.
either.
There you go.
Yeah,
Same.
I didn't vote at all just
I
because I
voted for
feel like it
other
was horrible.
Yeah, I voted for other offices, but not the presidential, and actually not even U.S. senator because was not happy with my U.S. senator who's also friendly to IVF.
Talking about Ted Cruz. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I could understand. I feel like nowadays it's like especially hard. I feel like it's always been hard to like pick a president or because there's for some of your things and against some of your things. So I just feel like in today's society it's really hard to find
Yeah.
someone who's for all of your.
I also just want to be clear. I mean, our position on Trump might be different than a lot of other people.
Yeah.
To speak for myself, and I know for Renee would share the same position. I'm not sure if everybody would hold the exact same position as me on this, but I'm sure Renee would. That if we look back to Mustache Man, right, and we see what actually happened back then. I don't know if people know this, but Germany was at its like heyday in advancement, in scientific advancement. They were in their heyday of the economic flourishing because of the changes that Mustache Man made. So he was incredible for everything related to just the nation of Germany. But
Okay.
nobody remembers him for any of that. We remember him for the human beings that he slaughtered. That's what we remember.
Okay, I could understand.
So that's my view of Trump.
Okay. I appreciate you guys sharing your views. And like that's why I didn't vote and I have a hard time like speaking about pro-choice and pro-life. It's just because when I'm not that educated on it and it seems like a lot of people don't respect opinions, which not saying you guys do, but a lot of these like lives that like have some similar prompts just don't like expect like respect each other's opinions. So it's hard to like form an opinion of your own, I feel like, but
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys speaking so loud about your opinions because
Yeah.
I mean, it does
What's
make a
your
difference.
opinion
My opinion on like pro-choice, pro-life.
on pro-choice, pro-life? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have a difficult time. I have a son of my own who is like disabled and has a lot of medical conditions, heart defects specifically. And you know, I was grateful for the choice because before I became pregnant with him, I was 19 years old. I just turned 19, and I was in college, so I appreciated the choice, but I was pro-choice before I became pregnant with him. When I became pregnant with him, it was a thought in my head that, hey, you know, I'm glad I have this choice because this could ruin my life. Or not ruin necessarily, but, you know, make life harder. At that time, I also didn't know he had the birth defects he had until birth. But after becoming pregnant with him and having him, I was pure, like, pro-life. But I think there are, like, some stipulations, but I'm still on the fence about them because as I become more and more educated, I become more and more leaning towards like the pro life side because I understand like the incest and rape and all these other stipulations. I could understand where people come from, but I also think like a life's a life and everyone should cherish it because I believe as a Christian, like that's what we are put on the earth to do is
Yeah,
reproduce.
I would actually encourage you as a Christian not to understand where they're coming from because they're actually arguing for the unaliving of a human being when they talk about the grape and the incest relations. The scripture actually says that the mercy of the wicked is cruel. So when they start arguing like that, they're actually being cruel, and that's not something we should just like understand their perspective. And as much as we want to have respective conversations, there are opinions that we don't have to respect if they're allowing for the slaughter of humans. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and we're actually
I
just to
think
be clear
a good
too.
way to
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Whoever was
Uh,
talking.
Shane was going to say that we're actually abolitionists. We're
yeah, that's
not
what I was
pro-life.
saying. Yeah, we
Yeah.
we resist
So
the pro life movement.
yeah, we hate the pro-life movement. Um, so we're abolitionists. All of us up here are. So, but what I was going to say also is like now since you've had your child and your child does have a disability, right? How much do you adore your child?
I adore my child even more. I feel like that God has, you know, given me even more reason to like take care of this child because, you know, he's just extra special.
I just want like I know you said you've become more pro-life or whatever that is. I know that you've said you've kind of looked at some of these exceptions. Has having your child who is disabled made you question why there should ever be
An
an
exception.
exception for types of children, for like disabled children or for those kinds of situations? You know.
Well, I'll put it this way. When I was at one of my OB appointments, I had overheard a nurse in the hallway, and she had said that this lady came back pregnant. She had got the genetic testing, and the baby came back with the gene that causes Down syndrome, and that she wanted an abortion. And it broke the lady's heart, and I cried in the bathroom as well of just overhearing that because I don't think that should be an exception at all, you know. And so that's where like I'm kind of stuck is
Does your
because
child have Down syndrome?
no, my child does not. It just hurt me because I had heard that somebody had wanted to do that just
Yeah.
because of a disability. I understand it can make life harder. Like I'm at the hospital every week, but I don't understand why they would give up something so beautiful just because it's difficult.
Yeah. I
So
think
that's
that.
where I have a hard time.
Yeah, I think that what we try to as abolitionists, the reason why we separate ourselves from the pro-life movement is we find our purpose, goal, and intent all in Scripture primarily, right? So
Yes.
the Scripture says that human beings are created in the image of God, and so their value is not based on disabilities. Their value isn't based on how old they are, how young they are, what stage of development they're in. It's in their value is in this inherent image of God that God has made them in.
Yeah.
And so because of that, we think that any law that sacrifices some children for others the Bible says that that's an iniquitous decree in Isaiah 10:1. And so that's why we're abolitionists. We actually oppose pro-life laws because pro-life laws sacrifice some children for others.
I can understand that. Yes, I agree. And that's interesting because I was just going to ask about what's the difference between an abolitionist and a pro-lifer.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, both don't really want abortion, right?
There's a good podcast about it.
It's called Chronicles of a Cult.
Chronicles of a Cult.
Yeah.
And it just talks about the
It
difference.
talks about abolitionism. Yeah, we got 8 episodes out, and the 9th one will be out on Monday. Jacob and I are 2 of the hosts.
Yeah, this is what I always call a shameless plug because he does this on every live that he's in.
Jacob brought it up.
I brought it up.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
shamelessly brought it up.
he just beat you to it, Shane. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so abolitionism is a Christian cause. And we have what we would call the 5 tenets that spell out gates. And it stands for gospel-centered, aligned providentially through the church, engaged biblically, and sought immediately without exception or compromise. And so as Christians, we believe that abortion is schmurder. And it's sin. It's the sin of schmurder, right? And the solution to sin is the gospel, right? So we preach the gospel to those who are in need. Many, if not most, pro-life organizations don't ever tell people the gospel. And they actually boast about not doing that. And so we preach the gospel to people because that's the biggest problem they have. And so because of that, we're also aligned providentially, meaning that we would rather have the faithful few over the unfaithful multitude, meaning the Christian few that believe in God and his word and his standard over those who don't. So I would say think like Gideon's army in the Bible, where God dwindled down the army to 300 people and they ended up beating thousands with the faithful 300 people, right? 300 soldiers. And so because the solution to sin is the gospel, we have to ask the question, who has this solution? Well, only the Church of Jesus Christ does. We're the only ones with the solution to sin because we're God's people. And then because we're God's people, we engage with this issue biblically. We're engaged biblically. Why is abortion wrong? Well, because God says, "Thou shalt not murder," right? He says, "If you shed the blood of man, by man will your blood be shed." Right? He says, "Unequal weights and unequal measures are both alike an abomination, and woe to you if you acquit the guilty and judge the innocent." So we make all of our arguments, at least the bulk of our arguments. We're not afraid of science. Any true science is God's science.
You're right.
But science can't tell you why something's wrong, or what the penalty should be for the wrong that's done. It can only tell you what is. Science can tell us when the DNA strand is in the human being, like at conception, at fertilization. It can tell us that, but it can't tell us that it's wrong to unalive that embryo, right?
Yes.
But God does in the scripture. If they're a human being, it's wrong to unalive them. It's called murder. And then the S is sought immediately without exception or compromise. We seek justice immediately. We don't want to regulate it. We don't want to incrementally get rid of abortion because God actually says he hates that, right? When justice is slow, the hearts of man are swift to do evil. I might be butchering that Ecclesiastes quote, but you get the idea.
Ecclesiastes 9:11. Yeah.
I might be butchering it, but you can go look it up. Ecclesiastes 9:11. And so we want to establish justice immediately without exception or compromise. And across the country, pro-life organizations and legislators oppose every bill like that seek for equal protection, equal justice, so that the laws that protect me and you from murder would be applied to the preborn. There's not a single mainstream there's probably a few outliers somewhere out there that are kind of coming out of the woodshed, but there's 70 plus pro-life organizations that signed a letter saying they oppose bills of abolition, such as National Right to Life, like 50, 50 pro-life state organizations. Not every state had one that signed it, but like we did have many pro-life organizations sign it. And in episode 4 of our podcast, we actually talk about it if you'd like to see that. But yeah, so that's kind of the short end of the differences. There's much more to say about history and what's happened, but that's kind of the 5 tenets were in response to the compromise of the pro-life movement.
Okay, I understand. Thank you guys. And what was the podcast name again? I'm sorry.
Chronicles of a Cult.
Okay.
And
Sorry.
don't get too worried about the cult word. You know, we are believers, we're Christians. It's kind of an ironic name for us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I could see that. Well, I just want to say thank you guys so much. You know, this helped strengthen my knowledge as like a Christian, as a woman, as someone who has a child. You know, this really benefited me and helped clear up some things for me. So thank you guys so much.
Praise the Lord.
yeah.
Of course.
Yes. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you.
You
You
too.
too.
All right.
I just want to address, I wish Courtney would come up here so we could talk more in depth about it, but we don't think that a baby that was created through IVF and went full term and is here, we do not think that those people are abominations. We think that those people are created in the image of God. They're image bearers of God. But we also think that the babies who died in the process of creating that baby are also image bearers of Christ, and they should be treated with dignity, and that they shouldn't be in cryogenic prisons, they shouldn't be discarded, and they shouldn't be used for scientific research. So
Yeah,
we want to take that process away.
yeah. We love the child that was born via IVF as much as we love the child whose mother was them via IVF, as much as we do the siblings that the same mother left up for slaughter.
She says that she's a Christian and she's against abortion, but she likes IVF still because it creates life. So I was wanting her to come up so we could just kind of um, give her more scripture and just have a deeper conversation, but I don't know if she's going to.
There's reasons people get abortions, and one of the reasons is financial. And one of the the main reason people get IVF is for fertility issues. And those two reasons were also the same reasons people brought their children to Moloch to be burned in the fires.
Yep.
And so this is like this is a repackaging of old idolatry and child sacrifice. So abortion. So sometimes babies are murdered because we don't want children. That's abortion. And sometimes people are murdered because humans are murdered because we do want children, and that's IVF. So how many humans have to be sacrificed to have that one child? People are focusing a lot on the one that's like created, which is very rare. It's rare for it to work out. Um, but you're using the same arguments they used of why they were bringing their children to be sacrificed to Molech. And God says, if you close your eyes to this, if the people at all close their eyes to this, to the sacrifice of children to Molech, God's face is set against you. So you should really be careful about arguing for this atrocity of IVF.
I was also
Mischief,
going to add
I
to that.
go ahead, sorry. I was just saying that I invited Mischief up if they wanted to
Okay.
come and talk to us. Go ahead.
I was just going to add to what Shane just said um, about maybe it was Jacob, I don't know, about us viewing them as image bearers of God. And we don't, like, it doesn't take away from their value that they're conceived via IVF. Um, we go so far as to, we want the ones that are in frozen storage to be rescued. So there are couples who have adopted embryos and had them implanted. Um, and so because we see them as image bearers, the frozen ones, the ones that are being discarded, they're all image bearers of God, and they deserve our protection, and they also deserve justice. So that's what we're trying to provide for them. So Mischief has done IVF. Is that what I'm reading?
Yeah, it looked like they have went through the process.
Twice. So is that, are you talking about two cycles, two separate cycles, or one cycle and you have two children from it?
W Becca in the chat.
Yep. Yeah, Gina's question's good. That's what I'm wanting to know. How many embryos did you create to get that son and daughter? Two separate cycles. So you created a lot more embryos than just the two, I'm sure. Yeah, the age thing is a big factor, and that's why so many people are infertile is because they're waiting to have children. Um, and then by the time they're ready, then they are getting past that time. That's why it's important to start when you're young.
Who's punching their keyboard? I'm assuming Shane, since Renee's muted.
Could be Miranda.
Nope, not me.
No, that's weird.
It,
It's
it's
Shane.
definitely Shane. It's
Shane
always
is the
Shane.
culprit.
Other people make noise, and you just do that to me because
Yeah,
you know
not
bothers me.
like
That's
you.
all.
I'm shocked we haven't heard your ice scraping, scooping
Well, I haven't done ice.
shenanigans.
I haven't delivered ice all week, so.
Wow.
Oh man. All right. Well, if nobody else is gonna request, last takers.
No one wants. One twice.
No. All
Nobody
right.
likes us.
I'm gonna wrap it up. Thanks, guys, for coming up and helping out. Renee, thank you so much. I'm learning a lot, and I appreciate how you talked about that IVF and that book recommendation. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I didn't get to go to the IVF lab today, so I'm making up for it.
There you go. There you go. Well, I appreciate
Oh, by
y'all.
the way, real quick, let me address something Mischief just said about the mosaics.
Yes, go ahead.
There have been cases where mosaics have been created, and they have gone ahead with the implantation of those and have had successful, completely healthy pregnancies and children as a result of that. So that's not a good argument. They could be compatible with life. You don't know that. You're not God.
What
Yeah, see, they were
can,
discarded as they were not able to be compatible with life. That's wrong. They should not be
can
discarded. They need to
what is
be
a
implanted.
mosaic? What does that mean? I've never heard that before.
Um, it's a technical term. Um,
Okay.
it's a basically in a nutshell, kind of in a like easiest way I know to describe it is where the genetic information is it's how do I describe it? You, I wasn't prepared for that. I know what she's
Sorry.
referring to.
Sorry. Um,
Because my daughter might have a condition that where she's a mosaic, and it has to do with the genetic material and um,
so it's
like
not
Okay.
something that is specific to IVF. It can be
yes, it can be
something that's
anyone.
okay.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
So it says mosaic in IVF refers to the presence of both normal and abnormal cells in the embryos
yes.
created during the process. When embryos are tested for chromosomal abnormalities, like in genetic testing, a mosaic
Hmm.
result means that some of the cells have the correct number of chromosomes, while others may have an extra or missing chromosome.
Yeah.
Oh, so
So
And it
eugenics. Great.
can be in healthy
yeah,
pregnancies as well. Yeah.
right. So going back to my daughter, we haven't had her tested yet, but she shows signs of having Turner syndrome,
Okay.
and they will discard those embryos if they have Turner syndrome. But girls that have Turner syndrome, they can either be a mosaic or they can be like full on Turner syndrome where they're missing a whole X chromosome in their sex chromosomes. Mosaic, they're missing part of their chromosome, part of one of their X chromosomes. So yeah, it's definitely eugenics, and I would hate I just absolutely abhor the thought of them just discarding those embryos because they're not God. They don't know what God can do. God can actually heal that. And in some cases, it's not even an issue depending on what depending on where the what gene is being affected. It's not even truly an issue. So they can't say that they're not compatible with life.
Yeah, and trisomy 3 is not a reason to intentionally discard a human being. That would
Right.
be like saying, "Oh, well, my 2-year-old it has terminal cancer. Let's just end their life now."
Hmm.
That's insane to take that into your own hands and think that you can be the arbiter of another human's life.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I just wanted to address that because that's a problem.
Somebody's requesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. I guess I was when you guys are done with whatever you're currently on,
No,
I
we're
guess I
yeah,
have a
we were
question.
wrapping that up, so go ahead. We're good.
Cause yeah, I'm against IVF. I guess I don't know like when like making laws against it, like how are we gonna like how would we go about like people who already went through IVF and have like more well, and who have like already fertilized ones.
Oh, so
Yeah, so
you mean like babies that are already in like freezers?
Yeah, so like if someone went through the IVF process before, like let's say if we got a bill passed, like what would that bill say? Like would the bill like say, hey, you have to implant this, you have to go through the IVF process to implant this, or
or
onto
someone
yourself or
else.
another
Well,
person? Or
they've already gone through most of the IVF process. The only thing left would be the implantation.
yeah, so would
And
we have to like force like what would we I don't know, would the
either
bill force them to like implant
either
or
the
would they force it on
parents
them?
either the parents would need to do that, or they would need to adopt their embryos to couples that would be willing to do that.
Or do a surrogate sort of thing, maybe?
Not a surrogate. They would actually be their children
Yeah,
if
like
they
adoption.
implanted. We don't agree with surrogacy
Yeah.
because you
Well, I
don't
guess
want
like
to.
if you gave them to someone else, they'd be kind of like a surrogate, I suppose, but you'd be taking the child away from the person who like birthed them, which is my issue with surrogacy too.
Right.
Yeah, that's why we're not condoning surrogacy. You don't take a child away from the person that carried them for 9 months.
Yeah,
That's terrible.
yeah. I was
But
talking to my sister about it, so.
yeah, no, we're talking about adoption.
Hmm.
So I know it sounds kind of weird, but we actually know some couples who have done this. They've adopted someone else's embryo as their own, and they
Hmm.
keep the child or the children that come about from that.
Yeah, I don't know, I've been talking to my sister because she doesn't, she actually didn't know that she could get pregnant without IVF, and like she knows I'm not for IVF, and she has an unexpected pregnancy, and now with the amount of embryos that she has, she's like, I didn't want to have more the next amount of pregnancies, and I really, and so she's like, and I was like, and she's like, and I don't want my child out in the world and be able to do a sympathy transfer, and she's like, I don't want my child
Hmm.
with a stranger, and I was like, if you don't want to and so I did offer to be surrogate for her since we're surrogate for her because it like just if that was what it would take to get her to, not like do sympathy transfers or something. But I don't know. I don't know. I've been talking about it because I'm like, I don't actually know what to do about that. you know?
Yeah, mm,
Yeah, because
that's hard.
she doesn't want to like she doesn't want to throw them away, and she doesn't want to give them to a stranger. But she's like, I didn't anticipate the amount of pregnancies I would have because I didn't know I could get pregnant without IVF. So I've been talking to her a little bit about like what to do because I don't want them to be discarded. I don't want them out in the world. I want them with their family. So it's like I don't know. We've been talking about it, but yeah, I've been trying to figure out how a bill would work in that area. You know?
Yeah, they
I
would
think
have
that's
to be
a
rescued.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a really hard situation that to like have these children and then like but it's like it's the same concept as like with born children with adoption.
Hmm.
Like sometimes these mothers like they have these children and they love these children and they want what's best for them but they just aren't physically the ones that are able to take care of them. But I think it's really
Sorry.
virtuous when mothers
Yeah.
choose to have their children be adopted for
Yeah.
the good of their children to have a family to and like Renee said like to be freed from like a cryogenic prison and
Right.
so it's terrible in the same sense that like adoption like is is a difficult situation.
Yeah, so I am thinking about that's why I've been thinking about being a surrogate for her. We are actually neighbors, so my son and her son are like with each other every day. So I've been running by because even though I'm like not a fan of surrogacy, I hate surrogacy. I don't like. There's a whole lot of stuff in that area I don't like. But I was like, well, maybe if I carry the babies for any
Hey,
babies like for
I
her
would look
maybe.
up go on YouTube and if you just search like um born from surrogacy testimony or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
I would look up like these children that are born from surrogacy and their testimonies. And I saw a video of a girl. I'll try and find it and send it to you on Discord if I can
Mm-hmm.
hunt it down again, make it easier for you. But she was born from surrogacy and she is speaking out against it. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, I guess with my situation, because like I'm neighbors with her, like my parents, me, and my sister are all neighbors. Like basically, so I was like, part of what I was considering is because like I breastfed her son, and my son, and so I'm like, well, if I carry the baby for her, and I basically live with her, and like she's there the entire time, we're there the entire time, kind of like we've been raising our sons together and breastfeeding and each other's kids and all that. I'm like, that might make it. I don't know. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. It's a lot to think about.
Renee, what are your thoughts with that? Or Shane?
Well,
Because
I was just going to ask, can you tell me again? Maybe I missed it, but why can she not carry her own embryos?
She has for her and her she has issues with actually like them being successful. She has a miscarriage history, and she doesn't want more than like she didn't want to be pregnant like more than 3 times, and she has more embryos than because she has an unexpected pregnancy, and so now she has more children than she planned on, and she's like in the institute. I don't know, something about like in the chance of her miscarrying is like very high. I don't remember exactly what she has. So she was
Yeah,
thinking about that.
it- my suggestion, just because I strongly disagree with surrogacy. I mean, I know your
Yeah.
situation's a little different than most people's, but I just feel like surrogacy is not a godly thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my suggestion would be if she knows what is causing the miscarriages, which there's multiple reasons why she could be miscarrying. Um, there may be some medical something they can do to help her to carry the baby to term,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just doing a
Yeah,
compassionate transfer.
she was very monitored through her because she had done IVF a couple years ago, and they've been heavily monitoring her until at least till she got to a point where she was unlikely to miscarry again. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't
So
remember
I
what
mean,
she said they talked about. I can't remember that stuff, medical terms.
yeah, yeah. That I would go that route before I would even consider the surrogacy thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Um,
wouldn't that like I don't know if it applies differently like with family and like whenever like there's doubts or questions, I think going back to the Bible is like the
yes,
go-to. So
yeah,
would in that situation where it's like a family member, and this is very interesting conversation, so I'm glad you came up, Yaya, because I've heard people say this before where they're like, well, I would surrogate for like my family member.
Yeah, and it's not even that I'm like just family, but we're like literally right next door
Right,
neighbors,
right.
tied on the hip.
But what
So
I'm
it's like,
curious about is
sorry,
like,
she's calling me.
would that like fall in line with like what the Bible says about bringing someone else into like the marriage bed? Would that still, I feel like that would still fall under that same concept in scripture, but I'm open to being
Yeah, I
corrected
guess
if I'm wrong.
I'm still trying to look into that and stuff because I want to go about it like in a good way, whether or not it's like something I would consider or not. Like, I was talking to her husband. He's like, he also has a reservation. He's like, well, I didn't, he's like, I don't know if I can do that many kids. I'm like, well, hey, I'll take permanent legal guardianship over a kid if you don't want to, if you can't support that many kids or don't have room. But because I'm not
yeah,
up for adoption and as in like the current process, so I did make a comment about if anything I could do legal guardianship over their child or something if they got to a point where like we can't financially support another kid, but we don't want to just discard our kid. But I don't know. There's a lot of things we're talking about. What I want to go about it. Biblically and stuff. And I've been talking to her a lot about it. But it's it's a topic.
Yeah, the one thing that I think of in the Bible that to me addresses surrogacy is Abraham and Sarah and Hagar. Basically that was a surrogacy issue. I mean, it wasn't that, they didn't have IVF back then, but it was a surrogacy thing. Like, here's my handmaid for her to have a child for us, and look at what damage that did.
So it wasn't because since there was no IVF, Hagar wasn't with the woman. It wasn't Sarah's child. So I guess with IVF though, since they're embryos that have been fertilized.
Sarah told Abraham to go lay with Hagar so that she could have a child. So wasn't
Yeah, so I guess that wouldn't be that was like because like with IVF, I guess like with the like carrying my sister's child, for example, if I thought that was a biblical okay thing to do and everything else, like what because like it'd be my sister's egg, not my egg. So I guess I don't know because in that situation it was well obviously Hagar, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm kind of I don't
Yeah.
know. I still gotta look more into it, like biblically, and like talk about it. But I figured I'd listen to y'all a little bit and hear thoughts.
Yeah, I would definitely just take it to the Bible and go to the Bible and pray and really look into it because I don't I'm leaning more towards she needs to figure out what's going on with her that's causing miscarriages. If she already knows what that is and they can help her with that, then she needs to do that. Otherwise, she just needs to adopt her embryos out.
Yeah, though I would absolutely. I would be very much against that, and I don't know. I don't think any of us would tolerate like a stranger raising a child when we could raise them. I don't know. I'd hate the idea of my nephew being out there. I just found my son's uncle because like he was adopted out. So like I don't know. I don't like the idea of my family that could be raised with his family. My his son. I mean his brother and his cousin. Like it's like I don't. For in my mind, adoption isn't an option. Because
Even if it was to a good, godly Christian couple.
well, if adoption like as in like adoption before implantation or after or
Yeah,
during.
and before
Well,
implantation.
that's where I would say because that would be surrogacy for me because like that's what I was saying. I would if they're not if she either doesn't want to be pregnant or doesn't want to like or can't financially raise her child or whatever. That's what I was saying. I would be more than happy to take on a role of permanent legal guardianship over their child. You know, so I guess like that'd be the same thing though. Like me if I carried her child and like took permanent legal guardianship. I don't know. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
basically be like if she adopted her child out, it'd just be her sister carrying a child, and her child would still be raised with family. And I wouldn't do adoption. I'd do permanent legal guardianship because I'm weird about that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a little different though because most people don't have our dynamic. So like
Right.
most people
Yeah.
don't have
I've never heard this.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I do have a friend that was a surrogate, and it was just such a weird
Oh yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I really don't like surrogacy and it's so weird and that it's like the situation is weird overall, but then also there's this trauma separation when the
Hmm.
bio parents take the child, which is another thing which is where we wouldn't have that issue since we're like since we wouldn't really have that trauma issue because I'd literally just be able to spend my whole time at her house or in between her house and my house and
Is
yeah,
this
so her
like
child wouldn't have the whole trauma separation like they would normally.
I wanted to double check. You might have said it, but I was eating lunch, and so I might have missed that. But is this just one child that she's needing to like wanting to free, or is there
Um,
like more than one?
she has, I believe it was four more, and she wasn't gonna go over. She yeah. So she's like four more, and she was gonna transfer them all, but now that she has her unexpected pregnancy and whatnot, she's like, I can. That's a lot, and she doesn't know she can do that.
Mm. So would you like if you were to like get legal guardianship over the children, like it would just be one that you would
Yeah,
be doing that approach to? Because
yeah,
that's where it's a like a it's just a mess that IVF makes, and
Hmm.
we
yeah,
have to think about like those that's four children that need to be freed.
yeah.
And so if you were to like take legal guardianship um and do that sort of thing, that like it's something for you to consider and for your sister to consider, because there's still more children, and so like what's gonna happen with them,
Well, it'd be like the ones that are frozen. That like not the one that she's currently carrying would be the guardianship, but like
yeah.
the ones that are so
Yeah, I'm talking
she was
about the
planning
ones
on
that
doing
you would
IVF.
carry, like
Yeah, she
you
was
would
planning to do
take.
IVF every like 3 years or so until she used um pretty much the remaining.
Can I be
She got the remaining ones, but now she's kind of unsure.
can I be honest about how crazy this is to me? That we end up in this conversation, in this like mellow conversation about when to rescue these children that were put into freezers by their own mother. And
Yeah,
it's like she ended up getting pregnant because while she was thinking about how to, implant these other children. So, and I'm just being honest with you, just saying this raw, because of their idolatry to want their own biological children. They put those children in freezers, and now they have a biological child on the way. And now those children that have been created through idolatry are now going to either die or something, and they're just in this cryogenic freezer until they just decide that it's time to use them.
yeah,
That's the situation we're in with IVF. Like we're left to this like, well, yeah, I guess we'll kind of see when we can like get them. It's
uh-huh.
like, no, like you're we're talking about your sister, right?
Yeah. She's
Your
my sister.
sister your sister and her husband need to repent.
Yeah, I've been talking to them about it.
Hmm.
It's a very yeah. She's
Yeah.
it hasn't been very fruitful so far, but I've
Sure.
been trying to talk to her about it for sure.
Well, those idols are very hard to tear down.
It is. Yeah, it very much is.
I don't
It's
mean
been
that. I
hard, but
don't
I've
mean
been
all
trying to
that to
talk
be
to her
mean
about it.
spirited. We
No,
just
you're
need
all
to
good. I
Yeah.
understand.
we just need to
I've been having
speak.
these convos with her.
Sure. Yeah, we just need to speak with clarity on this, because like we are talking about human beings
Yeah.
Hmm.
that have been endangered by their mother, at best endangered,
Yeah.
at
Hmm.
worst like, well, there was children that were sacrificed on the way to those being put into the freezer too. So
Hmm.
there's just such a mess there that it's just sad to me. Like it's sad to, like abortion. We
Hmm.
end up, because it's the status quo and because it's so normal in our culture, even those who are abolitionists that hate it more than probably most are still left to having conversations where we're being respectful while someone's telling us to our face that they're okay with abortion, right?
Hmm.
And then people are saying, well, you got to be respectful of other people's opinions. And like, to that, like, there's there's a part of me, there's a big part of me that wants to say to hell with their opinions if they think that's okay. Like why are we left to having like quote unquote respectful conversations about schmurder, about child schmurder, you
Yeah,
know?
what my sister mentioned, she had mentioned the possibility of like a sympathy transfer, and
Yeah.
I was like, that is my nephew's siblings that you're talking about sympathy transfers for. That is his siblings. Those are my nieces and or nephews. Like, no, I'm absolutely get. I'm like, don't do sympathy transfers. Like, please do not do that. I'm like, she talked about it like a month ago, and I was like, don't do it, please don't do it. I'm like, because I don't like give them the best opportunity to like, at this point. I mean, they're there. You can't undo creating them, but what you can do is give them, try and give them a life. Give them. They're already alive. They're already living and
Hmm.
human. But like actually, like the best you can do is to, give them the most fruitful environment you can, and hopefully they make it. And you know what, if you whatever happens, but I'm more than happy to take care of one of them as a permanent legal guardian.
Yeah.
Or you have your mom next door to you, she's more than happy to help you. And I'm like, please don't do a sympathy transfer. And I'm just like, please just use all of them. uh you know and don't do a sympathy transfer.
What is
uh,
this? What do you mean by sympathy transfer?
so a sympathy
You
transfer.
transfer knowing that they're not going to make it,
So
basically.
basically, they
Yeah.
don't. Normally with IVF, they give you all these shots and stuff like that that will get your body like hormones and all this stuff into a state where it's
Hmm.
more likely to take, and the child is more likely to implant and thrive, and the pregnancy can like begin. But with a sympathy transfer, they just put them in there, and without any of the stuff to give them like a more fruitful environment, and they
Yeah.
may survive, a lot lower chance of surviving. So
It's
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
most of them
terrible.
don't make it out.
watch my nieces and nephews. Stop, docs, don't even like. You have
Yeah.
to either use
Right.
you have to use all of them. I will
Yeah.
carry some for you if that's what you need to do. I I will do permanently. I will do legal guardianship of them, or of any of them. But do not do that. Like,
And
no.
that right there, the sympathy transfer thing, the fact that we're even talking about that,
It's
and
wild.
that's you can find it on their websites that they offer those services. That right there goes to show you that they understand that they're dealing with life.
Mm-hmm. And it's so sad because like my sister didn't know about sympathy transfer until she's in like a IVF mom support group or whatever, and there's so many moms have talked about doing sympathy transfers in there, and I'm just like, it's sad. That's their
They
children
can
they're talking about, and they
they can
just.
also get their embryos and bury them, like
Mm-hmm.
not even transfer them at all, but just bury them or make jewelry out of them.
And that's so. It's just. Oh, I hate that. And
Yeah,
it's so
When you
frustrating.
say
That's the
bury
frustrating
them,
part.
like,
give them a funeral.
yeah, I mean, are they? I don't know. It just my brain just automatically thought buried alive. I don't know why it went there, but it just
Well, they would already be dead at that point because they
yeah,
can't
yeah,
survive very long.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
So they'd
The whole
basically
thing is
unfreeze them, they'd pass
Hmm.
away, and then they bear that. I mean, man, that just makes me so mad. That makes me mad that that's even called sympathy. Like,
Yeah.
oh man. Mm.
The
Yeah,
mercy, the wicked
I'm
is
like,
cruel.
it's really hard because I am so much against. I'm against abortion, IVF, surrogacy, even like adoption, but that's a whole other topic. So it's just like it's so frustrating because my sister, she understands that they're her children and stuff like that, but she's not quite there, and so I'm trying. Been having these comments with her. So they do get a little heated because I'm like, but it's hard because I'm just like, I love you. Please don't like, you know, just discard my nephew's siblings.
Hmm.
It's hard, but yeah, I don't know. I've been talking to her about the surrogacy potentially, or legal guardianship of one or two of them, but it's been a figuring it out. I want to go about it as biblically as possible, you know, and
For
you
sure.
know, so it's been interesting, and so that's why I was asking about like I don't know how we would do laws regarding current like how we would word laws regarding current and already existing embryos, but
Yeah, there's
about.
people already working on that.
Yeah, I guess I'd be interested in seeing like when those. I have to look into what those laws are like publicly, are like more publicly shown like what they're saying and what their ideas are because I would love to see that. You know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just anyway. Sorry for like derailing a little bit maybe, but I was like I guess I don't know what the laws look like and what people are thinking about. You know, or how I think about people are thinking about writing laws on that. So
No, that's a good thing to think about because we do have to deal with that eventually.
yeah,
If it gets abolished, then what happens to those poor
yeah,
little embryos? Do they stay in the freezer forever? You know, and then that requires money keeping the freezers going.
mhm,
And it's just when we
it's a lot
sin, we make a huge mess of things.
for sure.
We need to do things God's way.
There's a lot of work that's going to need to be done regardless.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yep.
Well, sorry for taking your time. I got a phone call
Oh,
from
No,
don't say
my sister,
sorry.
so
Oh,
I have to go call her back. But
yeah. Thank you for coming up. I appreciate you.
yeah, I'll be listening in the comments if the live's
Yep.
still going for long. So,
Yeah. We're probably gonna wrap it up.
all right, you have a good
All right.
one.
See you later, Baba. Or
See ya.
Yaya.
No, I'm gonna go back to Bob. I just did it. Well, someone was using my name on a like zero follower profile as a
Oh, gotcha.
troll to say really weird stuff. So I
Oh,
changed it to
that's
Yaya
fun.
temporarily. So while I tell people, so I'll be going back to Baba.
All
Alrighty.
right. Have a
Well,
good rest
have
of
a
your
good one.
day.
Yep.
You too, guys.
See ya.
See ya.
bye.
Um, and yeah, if Kyle is still in here, if you want to come up, feel free to request.
Yeah, he's not understanding IVF. That's most people's problem, I think, or a lot of people's problem.
Yep.
I can't right now, maybe in a bit.
Oh, well, we're not gonna be here in a bit, so maybe another time.
Yeah, this
All
seemed
right.
to get people interested, so maybe you should just do this topic.
I know, right? Like the IVF, I'm telling you, people like they don't, they have not really thought about it.
Hmm.
I mean, if we could, like, I want to believe that, like, if we, like, it all works in God's timing, but it would be great if we could, I don't know. It's such a bad practice. It's so bad.
Hmm. It is. It's wicked.
Maybe if we can get people thinking about it, we won't.
Hmm.
Because, like, how many more stories like that are going to have to happen before
Hmm.
it's like we finally look at it and are like, okay, this shouldn't be being done.
Hey, Kyle, if you want to learn more about it, you can check out The Moral Dilemma. I think that's what it's called, Moral Dilemma. And it's you can find that on YouTube. Also, Weeping Time. Yes, we do know what in vitro fertilization is. That's why we hate it. And we do know what expanding it means.
Hugh, usually either ignorant or devilish people, one or the two, say that there's absolutely nothing wrong with IVF. There's really no in
Well, I'm pretty
between.
sure he's a troll based on his name.
Yeah.
I
Probably
had
a
to say
drive
that.
by.
I had to read that like 3 times to get like what was wrong with his name. I was like,
Did
what?
you say it out loud?
Don't read it out loud.
I
Your
didn't.
kids
I
around.
was, yeah, I was just like, hold on,
Gotta be careful with these TikTok names. They try and get you.
for real.
More life is lost in IVF than abortion LBB. That's why we're concerned about IVF. Um, in a nutshell, Kyle, what's wrong with it is that um, IVF goes outside of God's way of procreating. And in the process, for every one child that's born from IVF, between 20 and 30 are sacrificed, meaning they are discarded or they are donated to medical science or just frozen indefinitely. So we want IVF to be abolished to prevent more life from being lost.
Bio says, um, Bernie Sanders 2028.
Oh my.
Oh no, he might not be alive, so we might not even have to worry about it. But
So Kyle, they're creating embryos in a petri dish, and then they will implant them, usually one at a time, sometimes more, into a woman, and they may or may not take, and most of them are lost in the process. Again, if you'll just check out that moral dilemma on YouTube, it will explain what is happening and why we think it's evil. I feel like I've been out at the IVF lab today talking. I'm tired. I don't know if y'all can hear it in my voice. It wears me out. It's exhausting.
it is, yeah. We totally feel that. We know it's like mentally draining and it just takes a
Yes.
toll. Yeah.
Yep,
I have to take a nap every time I go to do something like that.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
just so
sure.
exhausting.
Yeah. That's why I'm cutting back on like the live some is just because it's brutal.
Yeah.
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 Well, let's get you to 10K and then we can be done, I guess, since nobody wants to talk to us.
Yeah, Kristen, he's trying to make it to where people can get IVF easier because right now it's a very expensive process and most, if not all, insurance does not cover it. And he's trying to make it to where insurance companies will start to cover it and also where it's a cheaper process. But it's a big money industry.
Children are sacrificed through the practice of IVF. That's why it's a bad thing.
You paid 30,000 to do IVF, Leslie? Is that what I'm seeing?
Here's somebody. Hey, Hannah.
Hi.
How old are you for TikTok purposes?
I'm sorry, what? I can't hear you.
How old are you for TikTok
Did you ask how
purposes?
old I was?
Yes.
I
How old are you? Yeah, your hesitation is
That took too long. I
obvious.
just,
Yeah, good
Yeah,
grief.
no
I don't
kidding.
believe her. Her voice,
Just
I
keep
don't.
dancing around the question. It makes it pretty obvious that you're underage.
Hugh, I agree. Adoption is a big money industry and it needs to be revamped. I'm not saying that it's not, but that doesn't excuse us from the responsibility of taking care of orphans. And Kristen, we're talking about embryos created through the process of IVF that are being sacrificed.
This isn't a bad thing. Don't people who are inferential deserve to have kids? Like for real. What? Infertile?
I think that's what
Sorry.
she meant, what they meant,
Yeah, I
infertile.
know. I'm just being facetious. Reformed Labs is live. What? That's a rarity. That
We
hasn't
are
happened
neither
in a while.
pro-choice nor pro-life, Kristen. We're abolitionists.
Well, dang. Let's go all over there then. We'll
Yeah,
raid. We'll
everybody,
raid his live.
everybody um follow me and I'll go up on the panel so you guys can go over to the live too.
Yeah,
All the people in the comments so we can get some traction in there.
perfect.
Miranda, are you gonna go up or no?
Oh no, no.
Okay.
I'm like
Okay.
mentally drained for the
You're
day.
done.
Yeah.
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 But I'll be
Yeah.
supporting and liking it up for sure.
Okay. Alrighty. Well,
Okay.
I guess we'll see you over there.
All right. See y'all over there.
All right. See
God
ya.
bless.
Bye.